Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. It's that time of year when hay feeding really picks up for Oklahoma cattle producers. And joining us now for some tips on feeding efficiency is Dave Lallman, our Extension Beef Cattle Specialist. And Dave, there's lots of different techniques, but let's start first with hay feeder design.
There are a lot of different designs available, and most of the cattle producers here in Oklahoma, of course, have a hay feeder. And so some of the research that we did several years ago showed dramatic difference in hay waste just based on the type of feeder that was used. So this one behind us may be a good example. You see quite a bit of waste on the ground there with that feeder. That was actually an intermediate in terms of hay waste, an intermediate style of feeder, but it's got a solid ring around the bottom, and it turns out, compared to what we call an open feeder, one I like to think of as like an ag shop feeder that's just got 3 rings and then some vertical braces, those type hay feeders wasted about 21%. The type you see behind me here wasted about 13%, so that solid bottom was worth about 8%. And then if you go up from there to another design that has both a solid bottom and some sort of a basket or cone design to hold that bale of hay towards the middle of the feeder, that was worth another 8% savings in hay waste. So a total of 5% waste in those cone or basket style feeders with the solid ring, and 21% hay waste at the extreme other end with the open hay feeder.
Really make a difference in your bottom line when you look at the whole winter.
Yeah, I mean, that adds up, 16% from one type to the other. I mean, that adds up pretty quick.
Another way to work on feed efficiency would be to limit grazing, and we have another example right behind us, these cattle in this wheat field here, correct?
Yes, ma'am, they're limit grazing wheat, but you can use, and so we're going to stretch 1 acre of wheat for cow-calf pairs a long way this winter. We're going to have pretty high stocking rate, but those cows are only getting access to that wheat somewhere between 9 and 12 hours a week. So we're limit grazing them. But you can do the same thing with a hay bale and a hay feeder if you have a way to open a gate and let the cows into the hay feeder for, the guideline is 6 to 8 hours, depending on hay quality and cow nutrient requirements. And then at the end of that period, 6, 8, 9 hours, you just go out and push the cows out and shut the gate again. So it's limiting access to the hay, and the studies show that reduces hay waste and improves digestibility of the hay by somewhere in the neighborhood of around 15%.
And producers can still meet their goals for the finished cow, I guess?
For her body condition, probably limiting access to really low quality hay is maybe not the best use of that technique. Real old cows that don't have a good teeth, maybe 2-year-old heifers, probably, because they have high nutrient requirements, that may not be the best. But middle-aged cows in good body condition with average quality grass hay or high quality hay, limiting access to feeders is a great way to reduce your winter feed bill.
This is something I hadn't really thought about, but how about unrolling the round bale? Is there naturally some waste there, right?
Oh yes, and that's a very popular method to feed hay too. In that case, the producer just about has control over the hay waste. The more you feed per animal, the more they're going to waste. And so if you limit their access, just calculate about what you think they need and maybe feed that much or a little less so that they're encouraged to clean it up every day, you can probably minimize, I said 5% on the most extravagant hay feeder, you can probably limit their waste to 5% and below by rolling it out and limiting their access. But if you roll out enough hay and they use it for bedding, they're going to waste a lot of it.
They are, definitely. Yeah. Okay, some great things to think about. Of course, that bottom line is always part of the conversation.
It makes a big difference.
All right, Dave, thanks a lot, and we'll see you again soon.
In the past, we've talked about preparing for the upcoming spring calving season. Part of the preparation is to have some colostrum on hand to give to those high-risk calves. We want to make sure that they get the disease protection that they would need in order to survive and make it up to weaning time and the sale time next fall. Some of those high-risk calves may be those that were born in a difficult birth, took a long time for the delivery to take place, or they're born to a 2-year-old heifer that doesn't look like she's going to have much milk to provide the colostrum that that calf needs. In either case, we want to be able to provide, best of all, natural colostrum, if we can, to that calf within the first 6 hours of life and then repeat it again 12 hours later. Colostrum may be obtained from, say, a neighboring dairy in your area. They would have dairy cows freshening pretty much around the year, so you might check with them to see if they would let you have or buy some colostrum from those cows. If you get colostrum from another operation, whether it be a dairy or another beef operation, I would want to know that that particular situation has never had Johne's disease. That can be transferred to your operation through colostrum, so keep that in mind. If natural colostrum is not available, then consider going to the local feed store and purchasing what's called colostrum replacers. This is something that you can purchase. They're reasonably expensive, but they can be worth it if you need it. A replacer is one that will have a minimum of 100 grams of immunoglobulin per dose. And that's important that you look on the label to make sure that that's the case. Colostrum replacers then can be used to give that calf that doesn't get enough colostrum from the mother and get them that start that they need to get the immunoglobulins in the bloodstream to give them some disease protection. Either way, we think it's important that you prepare for this, get ready for this upcoming calving season, and by having some colostrum or colostrum replacer on hand, perhaps you can save just a few more calves. Hey, we look forward to seeing you next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Daryl Peel, our livestock marketing specialist, is here now. And Daryl, you have some new trade data to talk about. Give us an overview.
For beef exports in the month of October, we're up about 17% compared to last year. We're up over 9% for the year to date for the first 10 months of the year. And those exports were led by a strong export growth in October to the Asian markets, Japan and South Korea in particular. They were offset slightly by lower exports to Mexico and Canada. Mexico is still up for the year to date, but it was down in October. Canada has been down a little bit this year.
How about imports?
On the imports, again, we've been seeing less imports this year as prices have adjusted down in the U.S. market. Imports were down in the month of October. We're down for the year to date, led by sharp decreases from Australia, down over 50% in the month of October, down about 40% for the year to date from Australia. Again, that's being partially offset by a little bit of increased imports from Canada and Mexico, but overall we're still down for the year.
Now, in terms of cattle imports, what kind of numbers are you seeing?
On the cattle side, we're getting less cattle from Canada and Mexico. Mexican imports in particular were off sharply, over 50% in the month of October. They're down about 27% for the year to date. With Canada, we get a couple different kinds of cattle. So slaughter cattle is actually up a bit for the year, but feeder cattle imports are down overall from Canada, and overall imports from the two countries is down.
Of course, we're kind of winding down 2016 now. How is early 2017 shaping up in your mind?
Well, as far as the trade picture, I think we'll see a continuation of what we've got now. Obviously, there's some uncertainty about how the new presidential or the new federal administration will react to trade. So there's potential there that we could see some trade disruptions. But assuming that doesn't happen, we expect to continue to see increasing exports, decreasing imports. The exchange rate is very important. The U.S. dollar is still very strong, and that makes a headwind against exports, and it actually favors imports. But despite that, I think we'll continue to see progress on the trade front.
Okay, Daryl Peel, thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. With rain on the short supply across much of Oklahoma, there are more areas with low soil moisture. Our rainfall over the last 30 days has been extremely low in most areas in Oklahoma. The blue areas in the state received less than an inch from mid-November to mid-December. Exceptions were the southwest and the southeast. McCurtain County received 5+ inches of rain. The areas of dry soil at 4 inches were out in the Panhandle and more localized areas near Pawnee, Oklahoma City, and Bixby. For fractional water index, 0 is dry and 1 is wet. Deeper at 10 inches, the Panhandle is still dry. Across the central part of the state, tan and brown areas show 4 drier areas from west to east. Near Cheyenne, an expanded large area in central Oklahoma, Eufaula, and near Podo. At 2 feet, dry brown areas pop up in large portions of the state. Fall, winter, and early spring are important times for recharging soil moisture in Oklahoma. Rain for Christmas would be a great gift this year. Here's Gary with a look at how below normal rainfall is leading to more areas of drought.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, as you can tell, I'm trying to grow my beard for warmth. That means winter's here. Unfortunately, it doesn't spread up here as much, but I wear a stocking cap. But we have a bigger problem than temperatures right now, and that is drought. Let's take a look at that latest drought monitor map because it ain't pretty. As you can see, we now have a large area of the northwestern quarter of the state and also the southeastern into central Oklahoma area covered with severe drought. That's that D2 drought. And then we still have that little area of red down there, the extreme drought. And then we have another large area of moderate drought. So we now have much of the state covered by moderate to extreme drought. The southwestern parts of the state and the far northeast are the 2 areas that seem to be doing okay for now. We'll have to see if that continues in the future. Now, where are we getting this massive amount of drought build up over the last month or two? Let's take a look at the 90-day rainfall amounts from the Oklahoma Mesonet. And we do see some pretty good rainfall amounts, those dark reds, again, in those areas that are doing well, but we see too many of those yellows and greens and even blues. That's less than 4 inches in some cases, and in some cases it's less than an inch out in the Panhandle. So we're not doing well. If we look at that same time period, according to percent of normal, we see again much of the state from 80% of normal below, some parts 60%, some parts 40%, and even some parts less than 20% up in the northwest. So we are desperately needing moisture. One good sign we see is from the Climate Prediction Center's 8 to 14 day outlook. This is for December 21st through 27th. At least we see increased odds of above normal precipitation. Now we have to take that into account that it's December, it's extremely dry, so above normal does not mean a drought buster, but we'll take any moisture we can get. So since we are in December and we have January, February coming up, that is the driest parts of the year. It's not necessarily a good time for drought relief, but we can at least hope. It might be spring until we see widespread drought relief. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
So many times Kim Anderson talks about world production, and Kim, how does the U.S. play into that picture?
Well, let's just go back to 1987 when the world production was about 18 billion bushels. That production this year is going to be 27 billion bushels. That's a 50% increase in world wheat production. You look at that same time period, average, say the 5-year average U.S. Wheat production in 1987 was about 2.3 billion bushels. Now that average, 5-year average runs about 2.1 billion bushels. But you look at other countries, let's just take Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. Now their production in the late 80s was around 3 billion. It went down below 2 billion in the mid to late 90s. It's now over 4 billion this year. So we've seen increase in production just about everywhere around the world except in the United States.
Is it a higher yield or just more planted acres in those countries?
Well, I think it's increased planted acres and higher yields, plus a better infrastructure equipment. You go to the former Soviet Union, you look at the advancements they've made since the 80s and 90s, since the Iron Curtain fell and they went to more of a market system. You've just got an improved system there now, and I think that's a big reason.
What do you see as far as the world trends moving forward after this?
Well, if you look at exports, and I think that's what we got to look at, is U.S. exports have been declining slightly over time as our production has been going down. We're averaging now about 1 billion bushels. You go back to the 80s, it was about 1.3 billion on an average annual basis. If you look at Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, their exports is going to be over 4 billion this year. You know, like I said, around 300 million back in the 87s. So our export markets, they produce hard red winter wheat, has been going to the Black Sea region, which would be Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan.
Is this a cycle that we're going to see happen over and over?
I don't think so. I think it's here permanently. I don't see it changing any. It's not going to impact our markets at all. Right. What we've seen, it's happened over the last 10, 15 years. We realize that the U.S. wheat price is now determined by the world market. It's going to continue to be determined by the world market. But we also got to realize that Russia, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, they're producing now a better quality wheat, a good protein, and a good test weight, and that's what we got to do. To compete in that market, we're going to have protein, test weight, and milling quality wheat.
Okay, thank you much. Kim Anderson, Grain Marketing Specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Hi, welcome to Shop Stop. Today we want to talk a little bit about shear bolts.
Okay, we talked about shear bolts in an earlier segment, but today we want to talk about using a proper length of unthreaded bolt for your shear bolt.
Basically, if you look at your bolt, then you've got the diameter of the bolt next to the head where it's the full diameter, but once you get down on the threads where those are cut, the actual diameter of the bolt is somewhat less.
So that means that as you're pulling on that, if you're using it in shear, it'll actually shear quicker than it would out on the shank.
So if we had this, for example, if we're running through 3 pieces here where your 2 outside pieces might be fixed and the center piece then is where it could shear. If we pull back and look at this, then this cross-sectional area where we are is going to be less than over next to the head of the bolt.
So what we want to do is select a bolt with a longer shank here and then make sure that extends through all 3 pieces where the shear is.
And so now you can see that the actual full diameter of the bolt would be in the shear zone right there.
So that's a tip on placing shear bolts properly.
We'll see you next week on Shop Stop.
We have what we feel is a really good program coming up with our colleagues from the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and our folks with Oklahoma Cooperative Extension. We have been planning this now for several months, but that particular meeting is going to be January 24th and 25th. We cover so much material in that particular conference that we feel that we need 2 days to do it. And one is a full day on cotton that we will have speakers from the Texas A&M system as well as from our system there covering that, and also on what we refer to as the Other Crops Day on the 25th, we will have some updates on canola production, grain sorghum, forage sorghum, and pasture management, and I believe some cover cropping issues will be covered. And this year's conference, we will be in Childress, Texas at the brand spanking new event center there. We're going to have some speakers from the A&M system like Jason Woodward, Dr. Jason Woodward here from the Texas A&M Center at Lubbock, and he's going to be talking about, he's a pathologist, a plant pathologist, he's going to be talking about this bacterial blight problem that we more or less continue to see flaring up in areas across the Cotton Belt, and certainly we got a really significant dose of this year.
For more information about the upcoming Red River Crops Conference, visit our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
For many people, a tree is the centerpiece of the holiday season, but have you ever thought about using Eastern red cedar? Here to talk about it is Salim Hizaroglu of the Food and Ag Products Center. And Salam, can we really use eastern red cedar as a Christmas tree?
Of course. When we say Christmas trees, of course, pine, spruce are the prime species, but why not can't we use eastern red cedar? Surely conical small trees can be used as a Christmas tree. And we have plenty of eastern red cedar in our state. And as we all know, eastern red cedar is considered as an invasive species, but I am positively sure it can be used as a Christmas tree in addition to different types of pine and spruce species.
We, of course, as you mentioned, have heard a lot about eastern red cedars, and it is a nuisance for a lot of people. But there are products that can be used, and that's something that you work on. Talk about some of those products.
Yeah, eastern red cedar is a nuisance. Eastern red cedar is an invasive species. However, this species can be used to produce so many different materials. Of course, large trees can be used to manufacture lumber. Then it's going to go to furniture manufacturing. Small trees can be used to produce some novelty items. For example, I have a few samples here. In past, we made some experimental particle board from eastern red cedar, single layer, 3-layer, interior purposes, exterior purposes. We even made the wood plastic composite from eastern red cedar, mixing 50% fine particles from red cedar, 50% recycled plastic. Then you can produce all those things. You can produce mulch for the landscape purposes. So I always say eastern red cedar can be considered rather opportunity, rather than the problem in our state. Oil is another product from eastern red cedar. You can easily produce eastern red cedar oil, which has a beautiful smell. And eastern red cedar oil can be used for different applications, including pet shampoos, insect repellent, and all those kind of things.
So lots of potential there.
Yes,
how about the berries on eastern red cedar? Can you eat those?
Well, I'm not quite sure it can be eaten. I know in some of the European countries, they add those berries, kind of additives in different foods, giving some flavoring. And I also know it is used for gin production. They put the dry berries in it to give some taste, some flavor. But I'm not quite sure in the United States anybody has been eating the berries from eastern red cedar, but there is some potential there too, of course.
For now, though, I'll hold off. Okay. Salam, thank you very much. Great lesson today.
Thank you so much.
Finally today, every year lots of people hit the road to go see family and friends, but only a few thousand of them are carrying swine in the backs of their trucks and trailers. And most of them are headed to Duncan, Oklahoma for one of the largest swine events in the entire country. SUNUP's Dave Deacon takes us there.
First of all, you have to really like hogs. And there's a lot of people that do.
You know, the Fall Classic has always been one of those, in some ways, a bucket list event for folks in the show pig industry.
Oh, this is probably the biggest event of the year as far as show pig people is concerned.
Because it's bigger, and down where we're at, there's not much to sell.
And it's a neat time of year just prior to the show season kicking off in the southwest part of the United States for a lot of folks. And so it's really gained popularity over the years and become a staple for most of our breeders to attend.
And good luck finding a parking spot outside the Expo Center, because there's campers, trucks, and trailers from Oregon, Ohio, Texas, and everywhere in between, all converging on the Stevens County Fairgrounds in Duncan for one of the largest swine sales in the country.
It's a reunion. You just get to see a lot of friends and stuff that you normally, don't get to see from other parts of the country. And for them to see the trend setting, gilt for the boars and stuff that's coming out, it's just the place to be to get set for the next year.
We've never seen it before. We decided if we were going to come, we were going to bring pigs. Lots of new faces and meeting new people, and you've got to go to this stuff to keep in touch with what's going on.
Some of the buyers are looking for show projects for the upcoming year.
Anything you want to show, different sizes, different ages, You can find anything here.
They know that they can come here and get, you know, what they need. And so, yeah, it's a very popular place for kids to come to.
Buyers and sellers make deals at the pens, but the big money is exchanged in the sale ring.
So 1900.
There's a lot of investment in that. Obviously, they make a lot of money, you know, selling their animals.
The fact that we have a weanling sale as well as an open breeding stock show provides kind of a unique venue.
You know, it's fun for my husband and I. We kind of made the trip without kids this year. So this is kind of a getaway for us. We're really enjoying being here.
A vacation to a pig sale.
I know, isn't it sad? But we love it.
We had exhibitors this year come from as far east as Georgia and Maryland, all the way to Oregon and California and everywhere in between. And so this evening, I know, for instance, we'll end up selling pigs to buyers from at least 25 to 30 different states.
With that many people traveling to Duncan, the local economy will see a boost.
It has definitely been good for Duncan. It's grown. You know, we've tried to improve our facilities, our pens and stuff to meet their needs.
The hospitality's unmatched. You know, the folks, the community that every year when we show up, they greet us with open arms. They bend over backwards to make us feel welcome. It's the people. You know, we love the people. It's a people business, and so it's always fun to come back to Duncan each year. So.
From Stevens County, I'm Dave Deacon.
Here's Ricky's pick coming into the ring, 226.
That'll do it for us this week. Remember, you can find us anytime online at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. I'm Lyndall Stout. Have a great week, everyone, and remember, Oklahoma Ag starts at sunup.